Good evening, everyone. It is 6 p.m. on July the 15th, and this is the City Council Budget Workshop. I'm calling this meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Renee, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Bankert.
Present.
Councilmember Lloyd Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Kim Elliott. Present. Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Present.
City Manager Kyle Reefer.
Here.
And City Attorney Randy Mora.
Present. Thank you, Renee. We have item number 1 on the agenda, which is discussion and review of fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Mr. Reefer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go through the changes from the last draft to the current draft. Just to cover what's been updated since our last workshop. What we're going to talk about in the special meeting immediately following is the 2 upcoming hearing dates for the budget. The first one is set for Wednesday, September 4th. And the second is going to be Monday, September 16th. That's been on our calendar, so that hasn't changed. We did get the updated taxable value preliminary tax roll, and that came in at the 10.55% increase in overall taxable value. And that is going to come into play for our special meeting as far as setting the tentative rollback rate. Currently, with that increase, the rollback rate is set at 1.8518. And that would be the rate millage to keep the same exact collection revenue from ad valorem taxes. Our current millage rate is 2.0394. And that has been the same rate since 2012. And our estimated collection, which is based on 96% collection rate, would be a revenue increase of $1,752,675. So that's all been figured around page 11 of the budget. Looks like a 4 got mixed in there, but it's page 11. And then we'll flip to page 23. This is the general budget. This is informational technology department, and this is where we talked about the iWork software in the last workshop. It's been increased so that we can set up the software currently and be invoiced at the start of the fiscal year. And as a reminder, that's going to be the annual cost of $3,600 for the software. With the one-time fee, they got down to $1,200. We go to page 25. The last information we had on law enforcement was not, it was after this draft was created. So it does not reflect what our current contract rate is going to be, but that will be updated for our first hearing.
I'd like to commend you on that also.
Yes.
That was a great job. Excellent find.
While we're speaking about that, I think there's 2 residents that really should get the compliment here. Deborah Mall and June Van Scoy. Deborah Mall actually gave me an email beginning of this year. This former city manager saying that we were not being properly allocated time. She asked me to look into it. That was the first thing I brought to Kyle at the budget. I took 4 observations. And in the evening, they were spending at least 1 hour to 1 hour 30 minutes a day, just in the evening. getting the gator out, patrolling the beaches. So when I went back to Kyle, Kyle came out with the 1.2 hours that you were figuring it out, but that was just completely off the record. It's now through the geography of the.
It is, and it never was time.
So the question at hand is, someone owes us about $100,000 from past years. How are we going to recoup that?
I'd like to put you in charge of that. Please, help yourself and, I'll let.
I will take
I will
that,
let
I will
you
take
spearhead
that,
that
I will take
movement,
that
right?
mission, sir. Thank you very much.
And just for the record, I believe the party that would be responsible would more than likely be the sheriff's department.
And this is getting broadcasted. This has no reflection on any of the deputies here. They do a marvelous job. This is an accounting error. I'm not trying to take any time away from Bel Air Shores at all. They deserve every ounce of time they need for the deputies. It's just, we've been overpaying for years.
Fair enough. Please continue.
Okay, so on page 66, stormwater improvements, in our last draft, we did not have a planned project budgeted for fiscal year 2025. We stuck in there sort of a general average of the different estimates that Mr. Flutie gave us for the pump station that we're designing and you know, considering to put out for bid as the next project. So I wanted to add that in there because it is something that we've been discussing. And then just to go to, well, all the departmental sheets have been updated as to reflect the general budget items that I've just talked about. So for more detail, you can flip to the sheets and see the layout. That's it.
Questions or comments from the council?
I have a question. If we're anticipating. I have a question. If we are anticipating having excess funds next year due to the not going backwards on the millage rate and any other additional savings that you've recovered, does it make sense for us to reserve that somehow? And the next question would be, for what purpose? And for an idea, it seems as though we may have continuing new expenses for flooding type issues, and should we create a reserve for that?
So the way it works now, we have our revenue as it comes in, and then we have our operating budget and capital projects budget, and we've been lucky to have excess revenue coming in so that we do build reserves every year. And right now it stays in the general fund, but does stay in investing money market, so we get a good interest rate on. In the past, we through resolution have dedicated the $1 million for emergency storm purposes, which we hold as far as reserves on top of what we're required to by state law. But outside of that, there is no dedicated fund. So that would be to the council's discretion. But we are keeping it in accounts that are earning interest. And then we do our projections and follow it through our budget so that we see the reserves building.
How is the capital improvement account invested?
So capital improvement is its own fund. A lot of that is held separate where we get different revenues. Some of it is through like the penny program with the county. So it's based on tourist development tax, infrastructure tax. But all these things, our special assessments have to stay in this fund. So it has to be separated out. But we collect a certain amount of revenue in there. It must stay in this fund if we have an excess of it. A lot of our projects and programs are on savings programs, so we accumulate funds that are earmarked for the future, whether or not we decide to spend on that. If for any reason we do not have enough funds any given fiscal year, then they would transfer in from the general fund as needed. But the one thing you can't do is take revenues in the capital fund and move it back to the general fund or to any other fund.
So how is that invested?
So it's in a very similar account through Valley. We have 5 separate bank accounts. So it's the same interest rate. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Mr. Roberts.
So I was just gonna ask, so the money that's currently in reserves in the general fund,
Yes.
we don't have to allocate that to a specific project at any time. If we have a particular need, via resolution or some other tool, we can pull that money out and use it as needed. I don't think it's really necessary today or any time beforehand to say, let's put it in a particular specific fund.
Right, it can move, it has a lot of flexibility being in the general fund. When you talk about stormwater projects, we have an assessment, so that money that comes in under revenue has to be spent on stormwater. But with the project budgets that we have and our average repair costs, we still have, if we have a project in a year, it needs an injection from the general fund. And then with our operating budget, when we flip to it. So our total stormwater fund expenses, without capital, so 47 thousand for personnel services and another 69,000 for your repair costs, your street sweeping, our storm drain maintenance. So right now, our current assessment is bringing about 175. So if we don't have a project in a given year, we'll actually cover operating costs.
Mhm.
But in this year, with our stormwater projects that we have, we took our full savings out of that, plus our yearly allocation for like Valley Curb and used it. So yeah, that's how it works. It has to stay in there, just like the capital fund.
Sure.
With the Marina Fund, that is a little different where we have money comes in through our slip rentals. But that is, since it's a enterprise fund, we can profit on it. So if we don't spend enough in a given year on expenses and we bring in on so many $1,000 slip rentals, which is right now about, we're proposing 66,400, then any overage we have on that can transfer back into general fund.
And just real quickly, back to the sheriff's contract. So I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So the contract that the sheriff proposed to us was based on some algorithm that they've used. So the information that you located and determined that our portion was incorrect and Bel Air Shores also was incorrect.
Yes.
We were overpaying, they were underpaying. So if I made this statement, is this true or false? So there's really going to be no alteration that the sheriff's department would say, we're changing our numbers because they based the contract number on whatever they based it on. We then determined along with Bel Air Shores, what percentage of that we pay versus what percentage Bel Air Shores pays. It was done previously based on theoretical hours by the deputies. And then you determine, which is wonderful, that it's not based, shouldn't have been based on that. It's based on physical area of the support for us in Bel Air Shores. So I'm just getting to the point that it doesn't sound like the sheriff's department is going to say we should have collected less money. It's more of a sense that Bel Air Shores may owe us that money because they paid less than they should have been paying for several years, and we were paying more than we should have been paying. So it's really a want. It's a, this ours goes down, theirs goes up. So that I don't visualize that the sheriff department is going to have any play in this. They're going to say, we gave you a proposal based on the hours that we anticipate. We think we're going to spend in Bel Air Beach and Bel Air Shores combined. And this is how we split it up. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And when we say the time from speaking with the captain, it got confused in the last so many years of that I was even under the impression that it was based on time and how much time spent and they calculated it somehow. But when he dug into it, he came back with saying, you know, it never was. It was based on the land area. And he talked about some of the history of just how they were trying to figure the difference between Bel Air Shore and Bel Air Beach. So I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then in the time period that I was waiting for him to send me the numbers to make sense of them, I kind of ran my own numbers and then I bounced them off trying to understand. And that's kind of how we looked at it again and found that it was incorrect.
Okay.
Good. So going with Mr. Roberts' question or comments. Who do we really seek this money from that we overpaid for the last, who knows how many years? Mr. Attorney, how many years can you go back to try to collect funds? Is there?
All excellent questions that I would not like to answer from a place of no information. I mean, you know, I say that because with public entities, things are different than just like a
Yeah.
private cause of action for breach of contract and med mal and all those things. So I would say that if it is this council's desire that we look into what ability, if any, we have to recoup these funds and who, if anyone, is the proper party and interest in that regard. I say that's something that I would like to work with your manager on based on this council's expressed interest. I don't know that it's going to change the numbers on your budget right now, nor would I plan for that. And also any such pursuit would obviously come with the time and money expended to pursue it. And so we would have to see, you know, once we have an idea of that. So without any commitment to do so, to proceed in that route, allow us to get you more information to speak from that rather than us all just sort of postulate what should or might could happen.
I would think that a good place to start would be to go to, forgive me, and I don't know the name of the officer. Do we have a county controller? What's the name of the official? The CFO of the county.
Right.
Whoever that official is, it seemed like that's kind of where we start.
We start with our agreement with the sheriff's office first. We have to see what our PCSO agreements have said. We have to see what ability, again, if any, under statute or otherwise, we have to recoup. And we would also work with the, you know, our contacts in the sheriff's office and otherwise to first navigate that. So, you know, again, also understanding we are collaborative entities with the sheriff's office, with Bel Air Shore and otherwise. So we want to make sure that we're evaluating all our options before we just say, I think this is what we need to do. I'd just like the opportunity to work with the manager on it. You know, last week's email was the first that I learned of this issue. And so I'd like the opportunity to work with the manager to one, for me, better understand the particulars of it, the history, like how long has this been an issue, if at all, and then work from there.
Keep me in the loop since Mayor put me.
Understood.
Yeah. But,
I mean, I would keep all of you in the loop. I work for all of you, and so I definitely. do.
Yeah, again, has Bel Air Shores been notified of this increase?
Captain told me that he notified them.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions on the budget?
I think it was very easy to read this time. I mean, well job.
Good job, Heather.
Seeing as we have no other suggestions, we anticipate, were there any other changes that we should expect other than what you mentioned had not been updated yet?
No, sir.
Okay.
Renee has reached out to the Citizens Advisory Committee, so they are gonna review this draft. And make any recommendations that they do have before our first hearing.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I believe that takes care of the budget. For this session, we have general business up next. Do we have any general business that anyone would like to discuss during this budget workshop? Because it's a budget workshop, probably not. Anyone? Okay. Well, in that case, I would like to hear for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion made is by Frank Baker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lloyd Roberts. All in favor?
Do we have to do
Aye.
this resolution?
It's the second hearing.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Any opposed?
No,
Okay. Just for future reference, Renee, whenever we have one that's something we're voting on, let's make that one first. And then that way, if the crowd wants to show up and cheer us on or boo.
This
or-
was scheduled that way because you needed to have the second
Oh, yeah,
for the
yeah, yeah.
discussion
that
before
makes
you can
sense.
consider the
Okay,
millage.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
thought we had already discussed this. Didn't we already decide that we were gonna call a vote on this anyway?
this is our typical procedure. We set the tentative millage.
Okay,
This is the format we've used in the past.
that's fine, that's fine. All right, well, do you want to take like a 2-minute break? And then we'll come right back?
Sounds good.
All right. Are we live?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is now 6:22 on July the 15th, and this is a special city council meeting for the city of Bel Air Beach, Florida. Call this meeting to order, and let's rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Renee, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Bankert,
Still present.
Councilmember Lloyd Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Kim Elliott. Present. Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
City Manager Kyle Reefler.
Here.
City Attorney Randy Mora.
Present. Thank you, Renee. All right, we have one item on the agenda, which is consideration of resolution 2024-03. Mr. Mora, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As this relates to the budget, I will read it in full. This is City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, Resolution 2024-03, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, establishing the proposed millage rate for fiscal year 2024-2025 and providing for an effective date. Whereas pursuant to section 200.065 sub 4 sub B with Florida statutes, the city is required to advise the property appraiser of Pinellas County of the proposed millage rate and date, time, and place of the first public hearing to adopt the budget and millage rate for fiscal year 2024-2025. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, that the proposed millage rate shall be 2.0394 mils for fiscal year 2024-2025. And the first public hearing to consider the tentative millage rate and tentative fiscal year 2024-2025 budget will be held on Wednesday, September 4th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the City Council Chambers, 444 Causeway Boulevard, Bel Air Beach, Florida, 33786, where all interested parties may appear and address the City Council on these issues. Effective date, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon adoption. This has been a full reading of Resolution 2024-03, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Before we move forward, I'm going to have to go to the citizens for comments. Would anyone like to speak on this matter? Seeing as we have none, citizen comments are now closed. Before we move forward, I'm going to need a motion from one of the council members to approve resolution 2024-03.
Motion.
All right, I'm going to give that one to Mr. Bankard, and I'm going to give the second one to Ms. Elliott. Comments, questions?
I'm comfortable with keeping it the same millage. I feel like the short time I've been here, that we typically have needs that come up during the year. So keeping that additional funding normally comes into play, as well as with the loan that we took out for the stormwater projects. Do we have any prepaid penalties involved with that, or could we pay it ahead of time?
No, there's not.
Awesome. So that's something we, may even consider using that for as we go along. I just think it's difficult also if we do a lesser millage, it's always more difficult to raise that back again. And I think we have a lot of requests and demands from our citizens, which is wonderful. And have that extra money is a good thing.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Would anyone else like to comment? Yes, Mr. Bankard.
I'm a little bit concerned with the real estate values starting to drop in the area, and we work off of the year before. So when we're seeing 1.5% increases in that reflects market values last year. But I'm looking at, and I brought this up to the city manager during our council or budget meetings. We may be taking a serious cut next year. I'm not saying 0 or whatever, or 2%, but if I wasn't here in 2008 when the market crashed, but you watched the houses here drop by 50% so or more. So I'm looking at 10% cut. So you may be able to get me to vote for this budget.
I'm not going to comment on that. I'm just going to say thank you very much. And would anyone else like to comment? If not, let's go to the city manager. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, as stated in the menu that staff recommendation to keep it at the current millage rate, and just lay out that our two public hearing dates are going to be September 4th and September 16th.
Mr. Manager, would you mind just stating for the record what the rollback rate, what the ad valorem rate is relative to the rollback rate?
Okay, so the rollback rate is calculated at 1.8518 mils. And the recommended rate is going to be 2.0394 mils.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mora, and thank you, City Manager Riefler. If everyone has nothing else to say, then Renee, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Bankard.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Gaddis.
Yes, and so resolution 2024-03, setting the proposed millage rate to be 2.0394 for fiscal year 2024-2025 passes. All right, does anyone have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion made by Frank Bankard. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Roberts. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much.